This recording is going to be over solving equations and inequalities when dealing with word problems. Alright, well, when dealing with word problems, there are a series of expressions that fit into an equation. An equation is a combination of math expressions. So when you see a word problem, it has all of these phrases within the word problem. And what we're going to try to do today is take those phrases and turn them into an equation. So what's important about dealing with equations is that the first thing you need to do is you need to read the problem in its entirety. Okay, so you need to read the problem in its entirety. That is very important because if you don't read the problem in its entirety, you miss things. We need to list information. Okay, we need like variables that we identify, units of measure, gallons, money, miles, inches, and sometimes money. Okay, identify what answer you need. This is very important. Make sure that you define or figure out what their question's asking. And the last part we like to do is work in an organized manner. Working clearly will help you think clearly. Okay, I like to draw, and I like to label. I like to make sure that I have everything listed in an order. I love to make sure I can explain each step so I know that I'm doing the right processes. When you try to explain this, you keep track of your variables and you just keep track of everything that you need to know within that question. Alright, there are some key words that we need to remember. We've gone over these before, but we just need to go over them again. In our equal, the word is means equal. So like it says the sum of 5 and x is 20. That means 5 plus x equals 20. Okay, that's very important. Is means equal. Multiply, when you see the word of, the product of z and 7 is 42. So z times 7 equals 42, or 7z equals 42. Divide, if you see the words per or a. For instance, I drove 90 miles on 3 gallons of gas, so I got 30 miles per gallon. Okay, per gallon. Okay, so if you drove 90 miles, okay, on 3 gallons of gas, that would 90 divided by 3 is 30. When I tanked up, I paid $3.90 for 3 gallons. So the gas was $1.30 a gallon. So you would say 390 divided by 3 equals $1.30. Add, if you see the words more than, total, or sum. For instance, find the sum of 4 and t. So 4 plus t equals something. Okay, we're finding the sum of 4 and t. The last thing is subtract, less than or different. If you need, these words are very confusing, and subtraction is very hard when working with word problems because when you add two numbers together, it doesn't matter if you add 5 plus 4 or 4 plus 5. They're both going to equal 9. However, when you subtract, 5 minus 4 does not equal 4 minus 5. So it's very confusing. So we need to make sure that we are doing putting the right number first. So these are just a few words that you'll see, the most common words that you'll see. You will see some different words, but most of them fall into this category. Alright, let's do some examples. What if the number x of children was reduced by 6, and then they had to share $20? How in the world would we write this? Well, first of all, let's figure out what we know. We know that the number x of children, so the number of children is a variable, and it was reduced by 6, and then they had to share $20. Well, this is very important. These words, the number, this is our variable, was reduced. To reduce something means to make it less, so we're going to subtract. And then, so we have a variable x, we have minus 6, and it says share. Well, when you share something, you have to divide it among your friends, so this means to divide. share $20. And so we have divide by 20. Okay? Or we have 20 divide. Either way. We don't know yet. So if we have, it says, what if the number of children was reduced by 6 and then they had to share $20? Well, we have number of children minus 6, okay, and then they have to share $20. So say we had 5 children and it was reduced, I'm sorry, we'll say we have 8 children and it was reduced by 6. 8 children reduced by 6 is 2. And then they had to share $20, so we're going to divide by 2. Now when you're dividing, remember, it says divide by 2, so that means that the 20 needs to be on the top and the 2 on the bottom. So our expression would be 20 divided by x minus 6. Number of children minus 6, and they had to share $20. What is 9 less than the total of a number y and 2? We have what is 9 less than the total of a number y and 2. Okay, so it says 9 less. Well, that means that we are going to have to subtract 9. And this means total of a number y and 2. So we're going to add y and 2. Okay, but it wants us to subtract from y and 2. So that means our y and 2 needs to be in parentheses because we have to do that first, and then subtract 9. The length of a football field is 30 yards more than the width y. Express the length of the field in terms of its width. That sounds very difficult, but again, if we just dissect this problem, it should be good. Alright, the length of a football field is 30 yards more than its width, y. Express the length of the field in terms of the width. So we want to write an expression in terms of width, y. Okay, so that means we need to say y equals 30 yards more than its width. Oh, I'm sorry, the length of the football field is 30 yards more than its width. So if it's more than, the width has to be less, so 30 minus y would equal the width. See, even sometimes teachers have to rewrite. So the length is 30 yards more than its width, so that means the width is 30 less. See, sometimes you have to really read those to make sure what they're asking. So those are a few practice problems. Wait, what if I was given this problem? The mass of the Great Pyramid is 557 t greater than that of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Stonehenge has a mass of 2,695 t, which is 95 t less than the Leaning Tower of Pisa. There once was a greater pyramid which had a mass twice of that of the Great Pyramid. What was the mass of the Greater Pyramid? You're reading this thinking, goodness gracious, I can't do all this. That's so many steps. But the first thing that we need to do is dissect the question. Okay? Now, what we know that the Great Pyramid is 557 t greater than that of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So if we know that the Great Pyramid is 557 t greater than that of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, that means we have to add because it's greater. Okay? Okay? So the mass of the Great Pyramid is 557 t greater than that of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Okay, so this means the Great Pyramid equals 557 t plus the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Okay, the next thing that it tells us that in our problem is that, let me get another highlighter, is that Stonehenge has a mass of 2,695 t, which is 95 less than the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Okay, so down here we can say that whoops, let me get my pen. That the leaning tower leaning tower, gotta get my eraser here. The leaning tower minus 95t equals 2695t. Okay, so we know that because it says Stonehenge has a mass of 2,695, which is 95 less than the Tower of Pisa, so less means to subtract. So the Leaning Tower of Pisa minus 95 is 2,695. So now we have those two equations written out. Step 1, we dissected that. The next one is we need to fill in this information. Okay, so the mass of Stonehenge was given to you, so you can solve the mass of Stonehenge equals the mass of the tower minus 95. So we can figure this out. So 2695t equals leaning tower minus 95. That's the first thing. Okay, we also have, we can solve this just like an equation. So let's go ahead and solve that. So we need to plus 95 from this on this side and plus 95 on this side. That cancels out. We're left with Leaning Tower of Pisa equals, do our math here, 3,790t. Okay, so we now know that the Leaning Tower of Pisa equals 3790. We know that Stonehenge equals 2695. So we know those now. Alright, so now we need to fill in the data from above to solve the mass of the Great Pyramid, because the mass of the Great Pyramid equals the Leaning Tower of Pisa plus 557. So the Leaning Tower of Pisa, remember, is 3790. So we have 3790 plus 557. So let's do our math. You can do it by hand or you can do it on your calculator. Either one is fine. I'm going to check mine just to make sure I have it right. Okay, well we have 4, 3, 4, 7. Let me erase this 7. Okay, so 4, 3, 4, 7 equals the Great Pyramid. Okay, so now we know Stonehenge, we know Leaning Tower of Pisa, and we know the Great Pyramid. So we have one last thing to do. In our problem, it states above that the Greater Pyramid, okay, the Greater Pyramid, which has a mass twice that of the Great Pyramid. So twice that means to multiply by 2. Okay, so the Greater Pyramid, which had a mass twice of that of the Great Pyramid. So we figured out that the Great Pyramid was 4347 times 2. So 4347 times 2 equals 8694t. Okay, so the Great Pyramid is 8694t. So the mass of the Great Pyramid is that. See, this was a very short problem, but it had many steps. We had 4 steps to go to. So it's very important that you follow each step and figure out each phrase as you go along. Alright, let's look at this one. At the end of the day, a pharmacist counted and found she has 4/3 as many prescriptions for antibiotics as she did for tranquilizers. She had 84 prescriptions for the two types of drugs. How many prescriptions did she have for the tranquilizers? Okay, so what are we trying to find out? First of all, we're trying to find out how many prescriptions did she have for tranquilizers. Okay, that's the first thing we need to figure out. Step 2, assign a variable for the number of tranquilizer prescriptions. So I'm just going to label that T because it starts with T. Tranquilizer starts with T. So I'm going to say that tranquilizers equal T. Alright, so we need to write an equation. First of all, we know that she has 4/3 as many prescriptions for antibiotics as she did for tranquilizers. So she has 4/3 as many. So that means she has to multiply by 4/3 at the end of the day to figure out how much antibiotics or tranquilizers she has. So she has 4/3 more of antibiotics that equal tranquilizers. Okay, so she has 4/3 as many. She has 84 prescriptions for the two types of drugs altogether. Okay, so this is the number of antibiotics plus the number of tranquilizers equals 84. Okay, so she has 4/3 as many tranquilizers, which equals antibiotics. So it's antibiotics plus tranquilizers equals 84. Okay, because that's our equation, antibiotics plus tranquilizers equals 84, our tranquilizers are our T, and it says up here 4/3 as many prescriptions for antibiotics as she did for tranquilizers. So you have to multiply 4/3 by T. So that's the first thing that we need to do. Now we have our equation. So if this is our equation, we need to solve it. Remember, in the order of operations, we need to do addition and subtraction first. So we need to add 1T plus 4/3 T. Okay, if you add 1 plus 4/3, on your calculator you need to do 1 plus 4AB/C 3 equals. So do that on your calculator now. And on your calculator, it will show 2 1/3. Well, we need to put that back into a mixed fraction. So 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7, which is 7/3. So now we have 7/3 T equals 84. That looks very familiar. So to get rid of our 7/3, we need to multiply by the reciprocal. So this cancels out. We're left with T equals 84 times 3. And so you don't make a mistake, do that on your calculator. 84 times 3 is 252 over 7. So remember, you're multiplying 84 times 3 and 1 times 7. So 252 divided by 7 equals 36. So T equals 36. Okay, and now we really need to check our problem. So I'm going to erase some of this here so we can check our problem. Alright, so we have T plus 4/3 T equals 84. We're going to substitute our number in for our T, so 36 plus 4/3 times 36 equals 84. We need to do this on our calculator so we cut down on mistakes. So type in 36 plus 4, the A/B/C button, 3 times 36 equals, and that should come out as 84. Alright, let's do the next one. Michael paid $6 for a ticket to a football game. Soft drinks at the game cost 75 cents. Michael bought X drinks at the game. Which equation represents the total Y he spent? So we know that it's going to be Y equals something, as you can see by our choices. So how much did he spend at the game? Well, he paid $6 for a ticket, so we know we're going to have 6 somewhere. Okay. Then his soft drinks cost 75, but we don't know how many he drank, so it's going to be 75x. So what do we have to do to this 6 and 75x to get to y? Well, we just need to find the total, so that means to add. So it should be y equals 6 plus 0.75x. So let's see which one says that. Y equals 6 plus 75. Well, see, this is in parentheses, so that means you're going to have to distribute this x to everything. Well, that's not right. Here it has the x with the 6. We know that's not right. Here we're subtracting 6 plus 75x. That's not right, so obviously our answer is D. See how easy that was? As long as you dissect that question and figure out what they're asking, it's very simple to figure out the answer. We have a few more. At the beginning of the summer, Katie opened a new checking account with a $60 deposit. Each week during the summer, she earned $95 as a lifeguard. So each week she earned $95. Katie deposited 10% of these earnings into her account. Which of these equations represents the amount of money that Katie will have deposited in her checking account after W weeks? So, what do we know? We know that she had a $60 deposit. We know that she earned $95 a week. And we also know that she only deposited 10%. And we know that we don't know how many weeks that she worked. Weeks is unknown. Okay, so we know that how much she earned in the weeks that they're going to have, that's unknown. And we know that it's going to be M equals something. Well, we know that she deposited $60. So we know that. She started that. We know we have to add $60 to something. Well, she earned $95 a week. So did she put $95 a week in her checking account? No, it said she deposited 10%. So we have to do 95 times 10%, which is 95 times 0.10. So on your calculator, if you did that, you would get 9.5. Oh goodness, 9.5. That's how much she deposited each week. Well, we don't know how many weeks she worked, so we're going to have to put an unknown because we don't know. So the amount of money equals $60 that she deposited in $9.50 times the number of weeks that she worked. So we can see that A is not right, B is not right, C could be right because it has $95, or D has $9.5. Well, we know that she only deposited 10%, so it has to be D. All right, we're going to talk about inequalities, and inequalities just is taught instead of seeing an equal sign, you're going to see one of these signs down here. You're going to see a less than sign, greater than sign, less than and equal, and usually it looks like this, less than or equal, or greater than and equal, or not equal. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The equation will still be the same, so instead of having an equal sign separating both sides of the equation, you're going to have one of these symbols separating the equation, which means that something has to be less than, greater than, or less than and equal, or greater than and equal. So that's all it means. So in this question, you see all of our answers have a greater than or less than and equal sign here. So it says, to raise money, a local club is operating a dunk booth at the local fair. The club will pay $120 to rent, and each customer will pay $1.50 to throw a ball at the dunking platform on which a person sits. Which inequality could be used to find the number of customers, C, for the club to make a profit of at least $350? Okay, so what do we know? Well, we know that they have to pay $120, okay? And so if you pay, does that mean to add or subtract? Well, if you pay $100 or $120, that means that eventually that money has to go away. So they're taking away $120. We know that each person is charged $1.50 to throw a ball. Okay? So we don't really know how many customers they're going to have. So our customers equals C. Okay. And we know that they want to make more than $350. Okay? They want to make more than $350. So that is very important as well. So that is what we know. So we know that it has to look like this. Greater than 350. Or equal to is fine because it has at least a profit of $350. So right off the bat, we know that this one could not be right and this one could not be right because the signs are not right. Now, we have to figure out each customer is paying $1.50. And then they had to pay $120 to rent it, so we know that we're going to have to subtract $120. So just knowing that much, you should be able to figure out that it's C. But you see it has a C here for customers. So this is $1.50 times the customer minus 120 has to equal 300, has to be greater than or equal to $350. Alright, this is our last one. Julie does not want to spend more than $300 on ice skating. Her skates will cost $42, her lessons will cost a total of $56, and the practice time will cost $7.50 an hour. Which inequality should Julie use to determine the maximum number of hours she can practice without spending more than $300? Well, we know that she can spend up to $300, okay, but she doesn't want to spend any more than $300. Okay, so we know that $300 has to be greater than or equal to, our inequality has to be greater than or equal to $300. So we know that. Okay, we know that her skates cost $42, her lessons cost $56, and her practice will cost $7.50 an hour. So we have to $42 plus $56 plus $7.50 an hour. So that's what we need to figure out. So now looking at all this stuff, what are our questions down here? Which one has that? 56 plus 750 doesn't have the 42. 42 plus 750 doesn't have the 56. 750 an hour minus 42 minus 56. Well, we know that we have to add it together. So it has to be D. Hopefully this has helped you out in dissecting questions and word problems and figuring out equations. If you're still confused, please watch the lesson again before taking your quiz.